morning. It's Tuesday, July 18th, and we all know that the Supreme Court struck down the use of race as an admissions criteria to the major colleges. And in our minds, and in our thinking, and in our readings, when we consider race, the topic is always mentioned by using the word black or yellow or whatever color, and we talk about Latinos, and we talk about Asians. But there's a minority group that has been around much longer than those groups. And they are never mentioned in the discussion of what affirmative action meant to this particular group. And I am talking about a group of people that have been in the United States far longer than any other group of people. I am speaking about the Native Americans and how the doing away of affirmative action has affected them, because they have a much different standard of living than many of the other groups that seem to have been affected by affirmative action. So the doing away of the affirmative action needs particular attention when it comes to the Native American indigenous people, who in many cases are known as red, if we're looking for a color differentiation. So when you consider that many universities in this country were built on land taken from the Native American tribes, why shouldn't they be given some kind of special preference at those schools at least? Because their tribes, their people, had the land taken away from them as if they didn't exist. How about allowing qualified indigenous people to go to those schools for free? You know, we're not even sure how many indigenous people live in the United States. The guess is about 2.5 to 6 million, and around 20% of them live in American Indian areas or Alaska Native villages. And you know, there's some federal rules about whether or not you're really an indigenous tribe member, because there are many tribes that are not recognized because they don't qualify under some kind of weird federal set of regulations, which also affects the benefits that could come to you if you belong to a tribe that is not recognized federally. So the indigenous people have not been treated fairly in any sense for generations. And affirmative action is one of those things that may really affect the fact that they are going to lose places in the colleges, more so than any other minority. And since we're dealing with the effects of affirmative action on minority groups, let me give you some numbers that lead me to believe that if you're a Native American, you should even fall into the category of a need for affirmative action. You should automatically be accepted at any school you want. Because recent numbers show that the 18 to 24-year-old population of Native Americans who were enrolled in college was at a level of 22% of that population, whereas the rest of the country has a 40% of the college-age population enrolled. And since 2020, the Native American enrollment has declined. So they're not getting into college so fast, and they're not attempting to go to college so fast. So what would be wrong if these people who have been around longer than all of other people in this country were allowed to go to college without any parameters other than that they can read and write and are college qualified, right? In fact, the undergraduate enrollment in recent things is down from 179,000 to about 107,000. So that's a pittance. Why should they even be included in any kind of affirmative action? We owe it to them. We owe it to the indigenous people in this country a better education. They're not getting great educations on their reservations. And that's probably a lot of the problem with how they do in the college enrollment arena. So I said wave affirmative action for the indigenous tribe. Now, we all know that affirmative action began because of historical wrongs that had been going on for decades. And so it was a good move, but it really didn't help the indigenous people that much. In fact, the indigenous people were harmed because in 1862 they had something called the Morrill Act that gave states the rights to seize indigenous land to build those universities on. And they created those land-grant colleges without asking permission, without paying the tribes anything. So I talked to you about that. I mentioned that before. So why shouldn't indigenous people be allowed to go for free to those schools if they are qualified for college? Not any kind of fancy qualification, just the qualification for a normal student. And here's another fact that should encourage people to want these kids to go to college. A number of universities hold thousands of Native American remains and artifacts in their anthropological museums, even though a federal law that was written in 1990 called the Native American Graves Protection and Reparation Act mandates that those artifacts should be returned to the Native American nation. And they're probably worth an awful lot of money, but they haven't been returned. The universities that have these artifacts ought to be ready, willing, and able to accept Native American students in payment for the fact that they are holding back these artifacts, which are probably very precious and very valuable to the tribes that they really belong to. So if we look at this picture, we see that Native American students have a very difficult path to reach college. It's filled with many obstacles. Poor educational facilities, possibly the way they view colleges, and many other things. So from 2011 to 2021, their enrollment has fallen by the wayside. And that is information that was gathered by the Educational Chronicle. We as a nation owe these people more than they have ever gotten up to this point. So we should take responsibility for this group of people. A pittance in my view, of those that need to go to college. A small percentage. In fact, you wouldn't even have to increase your staff sizes to accommodate these students. So why can't we do it? Why? Why should we continue to deprive Native Americans of the right to a better life? That's it. Take care. See you in the morning. Bye.